All right, people, we're back. Another episode of Lost, Season 3, Episode 3, entitled Further Instruction. So after we spent the first 2 episodes of this season with the residents on the other side of the island, Jack, Kate, and Sawyer being held captive by the others, and Saeed, Jin, and Sun trying to save them. Now we're back on our camp of the island. We're following Locke post the hatch explosion, or in this case, as we've discovered, implosion, and how he may be attempting to atone for some of his actions in the last season. So we're still sort of in filler territory, but we're starting to get to some of where the meat and potatoes as far as where the season is going to go, especially since we get a couple of important character moments. Hurley finally makes it back to this side of the camp after being told to not come back to the other side. We get Desmond back, buck-ass nude, and potentially sporting some new supernatural abilities post the hatch implosion. Couple things to talk about here, but Luke, I wanted to know what your thoughts are on this episode and how you think this is setting us up for season 3 so far.
Yeah, I think with most stories, you're thinking like, okay, when we get to the good part, the so-called inciting incident, and then the journey kicks off. But no, you do need to set the stage for all the main players, because we know where Jack, Kate, Sawyer are. We know we went to Saeed, Sun, and Jin, where they are, and now we're returning to the main group, as you said. So this is finally all the groups. We know where everyone is, and now I feel like the season can kick off, and I will be reaching for my Stephen King shelf yet again today after the beginning of the episode. So yeah, even if it is kind of filler, it's necessary filler. It's not like towards the end of last season where it's like, okay, we're just delaying the trip to the others. So
yeah,
this feels like, okay, we're just easing you in, and then the fun can kickstart. Although this is the first episode of the whole show where I'm like, okay, we're going off the rails a little bit here, but I'm enjoying it.
Just a little bit, especially with those polar bear effects. I'm like, man, it was okay when it was like the beginning of the season, and like we didn't really know what was going on. Now that we know that it's polar bears, and like those effects, I'm like, yikes, they are really doing their best to cover up. See, again, and this is the difference between like ABC and the CW, is that the CW just does not care at all. They will just flaunt how bad their CGI is for the whole world to see. Like, how can we forget those King Shark effects on the Flash? But here with the polar bear, they were doing their damnedest to keep that thing hidden, to the fault of like the viewer, because I feel like just trying to keep track of any of that action would give anybody a stroke. But
there's probably like one VFX guy. It's like that's all they can afford. It's like, hey, we got the polar bear again this week. So this guy's like, oh,
and then that was
put in a really dark cave at least.
And then that was the same VFX guy that's worked on every single Marvel movie ever made. But yeah, basic brass tacks of the episode. Like I said, we don't spend any time on the other side of the island. We're pretty much following Locke the whole season, the whole episode. After he wakes up post the hatch implosion, first he's unable to speak. He makes his way back to camp. He starts constructing a sweat lodge so he can commune with the island, because he's like, I need to figure out what to do now.
Yeah, and this is where I reach for it, because this is exactly what the Losers Club do. They get high and they witness Pennywise crash to Earth like in prehistoric times. So again, this show is really like, whenever anyone talks about it, they've never mentioned Stephen King, so they just keep.
I mean, this season in particular, with how it started with the Stephen King book club conversation and how Carrie's popcorn entertainment, like that was definitely like a deliberate like thing of where it's like, oh, they were like they were throwing a jab at like more pretentious artsy critics who were starting to come after the show, because like I said, this is still the season where the cracks start to show. Like I said, this episode I think is a significant step up from the first 2, which are very, very intentionally keeping the viewers what's it called? It's very intentionally keeping the viewers curious, as far as like not giving them all the answers. But this one is where it's like, okay, like we're back with some sense of familiarity. Now that Jack is being held captive for the season, you're going to have Locke start to come into his own. And that also ties into the flashbacks this episode as well, which, while again continuing to fold into my problems with the flashbacks in season 3, at the very least, I think it's still a step up from the first 2 episodes, where Jack and Sun's flashbacks from the last 2 episodes were like deliberately trying to like flip our expectations of those characters on our head, versus this one is continuing to show Locke's flaws in that sense of where This was at a time in his life where he was a lot more peaceful. He clearly was at, because you can clearly tell that everything that's happening in the commune here is long before he had the interaction with his father and everything, because you can clearly tell that, like, you can tell that this is the point in his life.
He's actually happy.
He's actually happy. But you can tell this is the point in his life where things started to go wrong, where he's living on a commune. He's relatively happy. He picks up a hitchhiker played by Justin Chatwin from Shameless and the much maligned Dragon Ball Evolution movie.
I just got a very Jesse Pinkman vibe.
Yeah, very, very, very much so. There's a reason why Justin Chatwin and Aaron Paul were like circling each other for parts. I have a feeling that early on in the Breaking Bad casting days, Justin Chatwin was definitely in conversation for Jesse Pinkman. But picks up a straggler, brings him to this commune that he's living on. Turns out the kid is, first the kid starts pressing him to like join in with this plan that the ringleaders of the commune have. Next thing you know, it turns out the kid's an undercover cop, and that the commune was secretly growing weed, and that's how they were funding everything. And then John's like, "Oh, let me make it right. Let me make it right. Let me improve on it." He takes the kid out into the woods, but the kid easily breaks down. It's like, "Look, John, you're not a killer. You're not going to shoot me." And of course, that ties. And again, it's becomes beyond clear that like this episode kind of bookends things. We're starting to see kind of like a beginning of an end, sort of, to Locke's journey that we've been built up to, where we've seen all of this tragedy that's experienced in his past and how that shaped the decisions that he's made on the island. But last season, we felt like he was seeing a crisis of faith because of how he felt that the island was letting him down. He felt like Boone's sacrifice was for nothing. He felt like them constantly pushing the button in the hatch was leading to nothing. Even the discovery of the other Dharma stations, he's like, oh, there's nothing special about this place. And that's what, of course, leads him to do what he did in the finale of last season, which, well, we all saw what the results of that. So now, knowing that he may have compromised the island's safety in some way, now he's determined to redeem himself in whatever way. And he discovers through use of the sweat lives that the first in his acts of redemption this season is going to be to save Mr. Echo. So, who of course has been missing since the hatch implosion, and we'll get into that in 2 episodes. Like I said, this is not the Echo focused episode, but you'll see why I'm withholding him. The other notable thing to talk about with this episode is this was the beginning of Lindelof's and Cuse's, another thing that they tried and failed to do. We famously know that they tried to make Walt the epicenter of the story. That didn't happen because Malcolm David Kelly aged 20 years in the course of a month. So they had to quietly keep him off camera for most of season 2 and then write him off the show. And then this season they're like, oh, so there's been about like 20 other survivors on the beach outside of like our main group.
I felt that towards the very end.
We're gonna try and start to maybe fold some of those characters in. And I will say that is another thing that did not go well, as you have the infamous introduction of Nikki and Paolo, who just randomly show up when Locke and Charlie are able to bring.
Like, hey, we have speaking roles now.
It's like, oh my God, some of the other survivors have speaking roles, and you will see where that goes. Is all that I'm going to say. It's one of those things where it's like a push-pull back and forth, where it's like, I admire Lindelof and Cuse for doing that. It was at a time in network TV where they could still try to like be like, oh, we have all these other characters at our disposal. Let's like try to actually bring them in. And well, the Lost fan base was not a fan of that, to say the least. They were like, we want our name characters, and that's it. And you'll see what happens to poor Nikki and Paolo. But essentially, Locke is able to coerce Charlie into coming with him. They managed to find Echo.
Can we talk about the airport vision?
Yes. Let's talk about that first.
This 2000s ass.
It's like, so 2000s, yeah.
Just people sitting in editing room, like shaking the thing, like zooming in and out.
And like a ton of flashes in order to involve transitions. It's a classic 2000s flashback where Locke, when he's in the sweat lodge, sees a vision of Boone. We get Boone back for the first time since season 1.
Special guest star Ian
Somerhalder. Yes, and Boone is basically like the island insert there that's showing him around the airport. It's like, oh, these are the people who you need to save. And you're kind of getting like bits and pieces of like everybody else. Like Charlie Claire's like, nah, they're good. Hurley, they're like, no, not him. Kate and Sawyer and Jack, it's like, yeah, you won't be able to save them yet. Jin and Sun and Saeed, they're like, yeah, they're good, they're fine. And then it's like, and then he sees Echo's stick dripping with blood, and the whole time he's like shirtless, with pants on in the wheelchair, and he's like, yeah, you need to save Mr. Echo. You need to redeem yourself after you betrayed him so much.
Yeah, I that really enjoyed that. This is our first like almost direct island contact that we've had. We had like instances like the smoke monster or Kate's, Jack's dad, Kate's dad, whatever. So it's a long list.
All the above. All the list of terrible dads.
And but this is the first one where it's like, hey, okay, the island has properly acknowledged both him and the audience. So this is a really cool insight. More confirmation that the island is is a thing that
Yes.
is sentient, sort of.
Yes. And that's the other thing, too, also, is that by this point, it's pretty apparent after everything that we've seen and experienced over the course of the last 2 seasons that, like, yeah, the island is sentient and very much has a collective conscious of its own and is capable of communicating with survivors if it so chooses. And what's it called? And I love how we're at this point in the show where the characters can just, like, especially somebody like Locke, who has always been much more in tune with the island than than I would say any of the other characters, how he's able to just, like, immediately just, like, go into a sweat lodge and basically have a conversation with nature, essentially. It's very much the whole this idea of the force of nature having a personified personality, if you will, that's like a sum collective of all of its parts. So, like I said, he goes into the jungle in order to find Echo. He finds him at the polar bear's cave. He manages to pull him out after dealing with a very, very bad polar bear effect. But the other thing that comes also as well is when Locke first wakes up, is unable to speak after going into the sweat lodge and magically getting the ability to speak back. He sees Desmond running through the woods naked, and you're like, oh, okay, what's going on here? And then you have Hurley, who manages to make his way back to the camp, ends up running into Desmond.
This is another thing I love about Lost. It always mashes two unexpected characters together in these kinds of situations, and this is just another perfect example. Like Hurley's coming back from the others, and Desmond is, as you said, buck-ass naked after the hatch implosion, which is just...
How did that vaporize his clothes but not him? Like, I have a couple of questions there. But, yeah. And basically what this is doing, what the purpose of this storyline is, you have them, like, they're talking about everything that happened with the implosion, and Hurley is, once again, being the audience insert in terms of pointing out some of the more obvious plot holes. It's like, so wait, you had the key the whole time to let out the energy? Why did you just do that? He's like, I don't really know. It's like, just like every other character. Like I said,
the plot needed to happen.
Like I said, Desmond is, as time is going to go on, you're going to see in particular this season, Desmond is the plot device character, quite literally. They literally introduce him as like, oh, he was running away from his problems. Get it? But the thing that's established here is like, oh, Locke's going to make a speech and get everyone together. And Hurley's like, what? And he's like, oh, yeah, sorry. Little confused there after the whole Highland implosion thing. But it basically ends with, again, Locke and Charlie bringing Echo back to the camp. Everybody, like, concerned after Jack's disappearance, and Locke basically giving this big grandiose speech, summing everything up together. He's like, we need to look after Mr. Echo, but don't worry, I am going to come up with a plan. We are going to go save Jack and the others. We are going to bring them back. And basically, that Hurley looks over at Desmond, who's just, like, chucking rocks into the ocean, and he's like, what, that's pretty crazy that he predicted that. So once again, this will be continuing with Desmond's arc of being kind of their new plot insert supernatural thing happening, where in this episode, it's revealed that as a result of the hatch implosion, Desmond now has the ability to see the future. And you will see how that ties in, particularly with Charlie this season. Not so much in this episode, but later on. But this is just kind of like a means to, like, set that up, as far as, like, Desmond is consistently going to be the character that is, like, the one that is the most afflicted by the island's supernatural abilities. Like, it's revealed later on, like in the last season, that spending that much time in the hatch exposed to the electromagnetic energy that was pulsating underneath the hatch that needed to be released. Like, it definitely has. You're going to see how that
just like quick hand wavy things, like, oh yeah, this is just sort of the easy explanation that you can sometimes go for, and not to overcomplicate things. Like, oh yeah, he was just there for a while, and boom.
Yep.
We just have to go with that.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I said, we talk our way through it. So like I said, it was, in terms of this being, I would say, not the true pilot, but yeah, I would say this is the true pilot after 2 episodes of setup in terms of really getting us going. The beginning of Locke's redemption arc after last season, and how he's going to, like, attempt to atone for his actions against the island this season, setting us up, saving Echo, and then also setting us up for Desmond's seer abilities that are going to persist throughout the season. So like I said, we've got our 3 primary setups. We've got the others. We've got Jack, Kate, and Sawyer being held captive by them. We have Sun and Jin and their back and forth, and then we have Locke and his quest to atone, and that's and Desmond's supernatural abilities, and that's pretty much going to set us up for the rest of the season. And also we have Nikki and Paolo. Yay! That's going to be fun. Just, like, randomly seeing them, and everyone's going to be like, "What are they doing here? Like, why are they involved in this? Like, now after everything that's been happening the last 2 seasons." So
I thought they had enough characters. Like last season, it was already so crowded. You had to kill off two two
and then
main
remove someone else.
antagonists. Yeah.
Oh man, but they're like, nope, they're always bringing on new characters. And it's also funny too. You recognize the actor who plays Paolo, right?
Maybe I have to go back and
You've
check.
seen him in a million things. It's Rodrigo Santoro. He's been in a million things, but primarily he was in Westworld. He's one of the androids in Westworld.
I haven't seen Westworld yet.
Oh man,
and then they canceled it, so I'm like,
yeah. Well, they made it to 4 seasons. The first 2 seasons I thought were pretty good. The second 2 seasons were awful. Were just absolutely awful. Oh yeah, he plays the Xerxes, the giant god king in 300.
Oh, the guy with the
super deep voice, who's dressed with all the piercings around him.
He looks completely different.
Yeah, because he looks like an actual human being in this one instead of a giant roided out thing. So that's it. The only other thing that I wanted to bring up is I saw 2 movies this weekend. I saw Americanas, directed by Tony Tost and starring Sydney Sweeney, Paul Walter Hauser, and Halsey. And then I also saw Highest to Lowest, Spike Lee's reinterpretation of Akira Kurosawa's High and Low. I really, really enjoyed Highest to Lowest. That was a lot of fun. It's Denzel Washington, Jeffrey Wright, and a bunch of other people having fun in a Spike Lee movie. The movie is very much shot in New York. It feels like a New York movie. There's a reason why it took so long for it to be made. It is distributed by both Apple TV and A24. And they are dropping it directly on Apple TV after only 3 weeks in theaters, which to me is a crime against humanity because this is one of the best movies of the year. Spike Lee shows that he has not missed a beat despite being almost 70 years old. And he once again puts as many fuck Boston references in there as humanly possible, as is to be expected. The basic premise of the movie, like I said, for anybody who's seen High and Low, they'll have some interpretation, but Denzel Washington is a very big and famous music producer, said to have the best ears in the business, whose son is kidnapped as part of a plot to ransom it. And he's also caught in a little bit of a bad time because the kidnapping and attempted ransom happened right around a time when he's considering attempting to get the money in order to buy back the rights to his record label, which currently is up for a vote at the board. So it's basically the movie, very similar to the original Kurosawa film, is an examination of social class, the idea of, whether social class, working your way up to a higher social class truly changes you and your ability to kind of empathize with people, especially once it's discovered that in a horrific case of mistaken identity, his son was let free, but the son of his driver, portrayed by Jeffrey Wright, who is best friends with his son, was also kidnapped. And then so later on in the movie, he's at a point where he has to figure out, he's like, okay, do I pay the ransom or do I basically say, oh, it's not my son and I'm gonna choose to save my music record label instead? The movie also co-stars A$AP Rocky and Ice Spice, who are 2 pretty big rappers / pop stars. So that's something of note, as well as 2 alumni from The Wire, Wendell Pierce, a.k.a. Bunk Moreland, and Michael Potts, a.k.a. Brother Mazzone. Nope, that's Clay Davis. No. That's Clay Davis. You made the same mistake. You made the same mistake that the dude who I watched the movie with did. And I'm like, that's not Clay Davis. That's Bunk Moreland. Completely different guys. Oh man, but it is really good. Yeah. I had a boatload of fun with it. A$AP Rocky's new album that he released to go along with the movie is pretty great as well, even though it's pretty much just him reciting the same lyric over and over again. And yeah, it was a good time. It was a very, very good time. Very good movie. I highly, highly recommend it when it drops on Apple TV Plus and Tubi's, or go see it in theaters while it is now. Although it was pretty hard to find in theaters because as of right now, it's not playing in the AMC. It's only playing in the smaller theaters. But
well, if it's not playing there.
Yeah, and plus it's A24. So yeah, if you're able to get it on Apple TV Plus when it drops in 2 weeks. And then Americana, also a lot of fun. This is a movie that, in addition to those 3 stars that I just listed, also co-stars Eric Dane from Euphoria, Zahn McClarnon from Fargo, and it's another Tarantino-esque Western that features a couple of different storylines that all tied together around this ornate Indian ghost shirt as well. And it's relatively funny. You have a kid who thinks that he's the reincarnation of Sitting Bull. Sydney Sweeney pulls off the impossible in the sense of she's doing a pretty bad stutter the whole time, but she makes it compelling. Paul Walter Hauser once again proves that he is the best of everything that he does. And and Simon Rex shows up and he's the big bad in it. And he's once again showing that he is on an absolute tear since Red Rocket a few years ago. But yeah, watch those 2 movies for my birthday this weekend. Had a boatload of fun. Highest to Lowest, I can say, will definitely be a strong contender for the top 10 of the year. And what's it called? And like I said, I highly recommend both those movies. They're both relatively smaller movies, with the irony being that like a movie directed by Spike Lee and starring Denzel Washington is in limited showing and then dropping directly to Apple TV Plus showing, and it's one of the best movies of the year. It really shows the state of cinema that we're in right here. But Denzel definitely redeems himself from that absolute trash heap that was Gladiator 2 last year and shows that once again he is one of the best actors that we have currently working right now. So I recommend both of those. I gave both of them honestly really solid 4 out of 5s. So yeah, really,
It's
really
been a
took the
very
time.
4 out of 5 year.
It really
Like-
has. It really
Like,
has.
no 5 stars for me yet.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, the only ones for me were Sinners and Weapons. So, and even Sinners was like a really, really strong 4.5 out of 5. And Weapons was like the closest to a 5. But even that one, it's like, man, there were still certain parts of it.
It's Weapons.
Yeah, it's Weapons. That's exactly it. But that's it. That's our Talkin' Lost / movie recap for the weekend. Like I said, we're pretty much just going to be focused on Lost and then a movie roundup. And then you guys are going to want to stick around for Labor Day weekend because that's when we're pretty much going to be doing our goodbye to summer and our fall movie draft. I also just put on my top 10 It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia episodes, so definitely check that out if you guys get a chance. Luke, and where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
You can follow me at Luke Reviews on YouTube. I think after we finish Lost, I'm gonna do like an hour-long video just on Lost and like everything that we've gone, all the King references, all the things we've analyzed.
This is good because this is basically like your whole breakdown of it. That way you could be like you'll just have an entire body of notes to reconsult when you're making that video.
Yeah.
That'll be good. You guys can follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, at Official Talking TV Podcast across all platforms. And as always, people, 12 seasons in a short film, and watch more fucking movies and TV shows. Get lost. We'll see you guys next time.